Welcome, everybody, to the Johnny Drinks podcast. I'm your co-host, Johnny. I'm here with...
This is John.
And a very, very special guest, Bo Nickal is in the house. How are we feeling?
Feeling great. Appreciate you all having me on. Excited to chat.
Absolutely. I want to start off quickly by saying congratulations. Just won your first UFC debut fight.
Yeah.
Talk me through that. I want to hear about everything from leading up to that fight, walking out of that tunnel, getting into the octagon, take me through it.
Yeah, well, just coming from my wrestling background, it was really interesting because we never have situations where we're training like 12 weeks for one opponent, right? It's like I'm competing every weekend, and it's pretty different in that, like, I had such a long time to prepare for like this one event, right? So I think, for a lot of people, they can let that become like a little too big in their mind. But I felt like just with all my preparation and competition experience that looking back, I did a pretty good job of like keeping true to myself, and through the whole training process, all the media and stuff. And then the week leading up, I had a decent idea of what to expect because I had been with a friend, Jorge Masvidal. I've been with him for his fight weeks and stuff, seen like kind of what's gone into that and the media and the timeline of what it looks like. And so the UFC is just so professional and on the ball with all of that. So they're giving me itinerary, schedule, and I really know what to expect, which is a big thing for me. Like, I want to eliminate as many variables and as many unknowns as possible going into that. And so leading up, the whole week was a lot of media, but I was ready for it. I felt, comfortable. And then getting to the fight, it was almost surreal. Like, I shared a locker room with John Jones, like such a cool thing for me, just being a student of the sport and a fan, a guy I've watched it since I was a little kid. Now getting to be there, I felt, I wanted to just embrace that whole experience and make the most of it and be very present. And I feel, looking back, I was able to do that. I was able to really enjoy it. Getting to the point where I'm about to walk out, into the arena, I'm behind the curtain. I'm honestly like, that was my most nervous. I'm really? Like heart's beating. I'm like, all right. And, for me, I've done that, 100 times before, competing at Penn State, competing in the NCAA championship. So it's not an unfamiliar feeling. And so in my mind, I kind of, to cope with that and to perform, I just go into like focus on what you need to do, right? Think of it from a technical aspect of what am I trying to accomplish out here in the fight? Don't think, oh my gosh, the crowd's so big. Oh my gosh, like what if this happens? What if that happens? Just
You're going through your mental check.
Yeah,
down,
yeah.
Right?
Just my check down, my list of, all right, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to circle left. I'm going to be in good position. Like that just make it simple for myself. And which is what I always do and something that I was prepared for. And so what I wasn't prepared for, I walk out and the crowd's like cheering. They're like loving it. I'm like, wow, I didn't expect that. I just kind of figured that I just didn't expect that buzz and excitement from the crowd, and everybody's wanting to give me high fives. And you can actually see it. I've watched my fight back only once, but you can see when I'm walking out, I'm like very stoic, serious. And then there's people, they start high fiving me and stuff. And I'm like, I just start smiling. I'm like, wow, I got to like chill out a little bit and just enjoy this, Yeah. And I was really grateful that I was able to do that. And I don't think I would have been able to had I not had a ton of experience in environments like that leading up to that fight. So, you can see my face just change. And then once that happened, really the nerves went like almost to zero, right? I was just comfortable, confident. I felt at home. And then the last people I see are freaking you and Kuso. And I'm like, what the heck? What's up, boys? Like, let's get it. Like, then it was like, I'm even more comfortable because I see familiar faces and
nice.
I'm like, wow, like what a freaking event. Like, that's so cool. And yeah, it was awesome. So, once the cage locked and then I'm just ready to do my thing, and obviously did the thing. So
well, you just touched on something that's very important, right? So you're used to a big time atmosphere, being on a mat, one-on-one, your whole life is out and, for everyone to see. The body doesn't go where the mind hasn't been. So for you to go through that has to be, to a point, your advantage.
Big time.
And then now listening to you, I would think one other takeaway already is going to be the roar and sensation of a crowd. So now you have a new expectation. You got to add to your list. Yeah?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think anytime you experience something like that, I just look at those moments in my life as things that I am like grateful for and appreciate looking back on, but getting to do that is my favorite thing. And I want to do that as much as I possibly can. And being able to do that in college wrestling, it was a normal thing for me. Pretty much every weekend we'd compete in front of, 10,000, 15,000 people. And since graduating in 2019, moving into like international wrestling, you don't really get that anymore, right? Like there's just such a bigger following for collegiate wrestling just because they're tied to the universities and stuff. And I was missing that. Sure. And so for the first time in 4 years, I was able to do it again. And I was like, this is cool. This is the best.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that I'm so happy that I was there to watch that. Mm-hmm. So we were sitting, and every fight before that, there was a bunch of fans that were doing what I was doing, right? Walking up, dapping people up. They were fighters, and I was like, these guys look like idiots. And then you went out, and I was like, nah, everybody.
Let's do it.
I was like, you guys are moving. And so if you see the video that my cousin got, I'm like leaning over, and the sensation you got, like I saw you look at us and get really jacked up.
Yeah.
I got the same way.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I took a video when you were winning and then you won, and I got so excited. My dad texted me and says, the feeling you got watching Bo win is how a dad feels when his son wins. And I was like,
love that.
I was like, that's exactly how I felt. I was like, for whatever reason, we've only met a couple times, but we've stayed in touch.
Yep.
And I grew such a liking to you as a person. I was like, I want this guy to win so bad. And I felt like I was a part of that journey. So it was really, really cool to watch. And I appreciate you acknowledging that.
I appreciate you saying that, man, because, for me, a lot of times people ask, if you're breaking things down, why you do it, like, what's your why, right? Like, for me, I feel, obviously I'm a fighter. I'm always also performing in front of people. And when I look at what my why, there's really two for me. Like, I feel that God has really blessed me with so much, and so many people in my life that have poured into me, helped me get to where I'm at. And, some just gifts and talents on my own that I've been able to kind of use in certain ways, right? So I have that why, but I also have this idea in my head that not everyone can be a fighter, right? Everybody has their own path in life. Everybody has their own things that they're good at, and for me, it's fighting and performing. And I pour so much of myself into my craft, and I sacrifice so much, and I give so much every single day to be the best I can be in this area. And not everybody's called to do that. But when I get to go out in front of 20,000 people live and millions of people watching around the world, I feel like when I perform, I get to share a little bit of myself and share a little bit of everything that's gotten me to that point with those people. And so when you feel this like excitement, this happiness when I win, it's like you were there with me for that split second in all of the training, everything that led up to that. And I get to share that with everybody, because again, not everybody can do that. And there's a lot of things that other people do that I'm not able to do, but I just feel so grateful that I get to share that. And you kind of saying that, recognizing it, means like the world to me, because that's what I love doing. So yeah, that's cool.
That's awesome. Dude, and we feel the exact same way. And so congratulations on your first win. But it's not, here's the craziest part. It's not only just a win. I mean, that was probably the biggest card of the last year or so, right? John Jones comes back. You're on the card. Like your first fight ever as a UFC fighter is you're on the main card.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Like so you win this fight. What is your immediate thought?
I think that as soon as the fight was over, I just wanted to see my people, see my family, my wife, my coaches and teammates. And because again, the community and the relationships, at the end of the day, those are more important to me than winning. But when I do win, I feel like we all win, and I want to celebrate together. I want to be with the people that I love most, and I'm really, I'm intrinsically motivated. I want to win, definitely for me, because I feel passionate and enthusiastic about fighting and competing. But when I'm able to share that with them, that's like the coolest. It would be one thing to like win and celebrate on my own. It's a whole different thing to do it with my loved ones, and that's really more valuable than I don't know. I just couldn't imagine like winning and then going back and sitting in a hotel room by myself. Like,
right.
It wouldn't feel as gratifying. I know we're doing it together, and there's a lot of people that sacrifice for me as well to be able to do this and live this life. So I just really want to be with them.
Well, that's why the infrastructure of your family is the most grounding part of who you are and who you're going to evolve and become, right? Friends are going to pass in and out of your life. Hopefully your friends are good ones and they stick around during the harder times.
Definitely.
And then there's the core of your family and those extended family that you identify really clearly. So yeah, you have an army behind you.
Yep.
And you walking out, I'm getting and just listening to you. That's what you're carrying, and that's why a lot of those warriors have that same attitude. They know where they're coming from. They know what they're fighting for. So it's great to hear you kind of articulate that. It's real cool.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's huge for me. Yeah.
So, again, before Bo was a UFC fighter, he was a wrestler. Let's go through the entire journey of you as a wrestler. You started at what, 6 years old?
Yeah, like 5, 6 years old. So just a young little guy.
And did you hit the ground running? You loved the sport, or was there any sort of time where you were like, I don't want to do this?
So, it actually kind of starts even before that, before I was born. My grandpa was a collegiate wrestler, a wrestling coach. And so, he kind of started the family lineage of wrestling and stuff. And then my dad wrestled his whole life and became a wrestling coach. And so when I was born, it was like, I think I was born in January. The state tournament, he was a high school coach. The high school state tournament's generally in March. So at 2 months old, I'm like at the high school state wrestling tournament, So it was kind of just something that was in my blood.
Sure.
And fortunately for me, I just loved it. I was just, I played all sports growing up, football, track, baseball, did swimming. Like I did everything growing up, but I always really gravitated towards wrestling and identified with it. I think because of the challenge and the individual aspect of it where, it's just you going out there, feeling the pressure. And so I think that first starting, I just naturally was really inclined. I played all sports, but wrestling was always more serious to me. And I started setting goals and watching film and really committing and being disciplined in my sport very young. And it was something that I'm really grateful. I'm grateful I did that. I'm also grateful that I was able to have such a solid relationship with my dad because, you see the father-son dynamic of coach, athlete, and a lot of times there's a lot of strain on that. But I always felt like it was my choice to wrestle and to compete. And I think he did a really good job of allowing me to make decisions. And, hey, like, I wrestled hundreds of matches a year on average, but there was always a conversation being had of, hey, do you want to compete? Or, do you want to do this tournament? Do you want to do that tournament? And 99% of the time it was yes. If there was a no here and there, maybe once in a while it was, okay, no, we're done. We're going to do something else. And I also, like I said, had other sports that I would play that kind of supplemented. And so I wasn't like 365 days a year at 8 years old, like just boom, 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 wrestling. It was like, football season. I was still practice here and there wrestling, but I was like in football, and that was beneficial as well. So it wasn't until my junior year of high school, I was maybe 16, 17, that I was like wrestling. I'm full committed to it. That's when I stopped playing football and got to the point where I was gonna, I'm doing this in college. I always had Olympic and collegiate aspirations, and I knew I was gonna do it, but now it was like a more of a conscious like decision. My time and what I'm doing every day is gonna reflect that even more so than it had been. I was always very committed, but again, doing other things as well, and kind of just being, I wouldn't say I was a normal kid because I sacrificed a lot and spent a lot of time wrestling, but there were still things pulling me in other directions where I wasn't zoom focused on one thing, which I think is healthy. I don't think that there should be 8-year-old kids like zoom focused on one thing entirely. So yeah, kind of coming through high school, I had a lot of success, as a kid and through high school and stuff, was recruited very highly. And then decided to go to Penn State, which was the premier program. They had won national titles, had individual national champions at my weight class. The head coach, Cale Sanderson, was my favorite wrestler growing up and a guy I looked up to a ton. And looking back, was easily one of the best decisions I made was just being part of that team and that community and learning a lot of wrestling, but more so learning things about character, how to be a man, what type of things are important to me, what type of things I should be valuing. And just kind of from there had a lot of success in college. and was maybe halfway through college where I was like, I really love wrestling. I don't know how long I'm going to compete in wrestling, but I'm even more interested in fighting. Like,
so this is interesting.
Yeah.
You're touching on a lot of things, and not to interrupt you or slow you down, because we want to hear all about it.
Yeah.
But there's, some of that high school experience that a lot of people don't understand does lay the groundwork for where you are today, right? Not only did you start, as you said, 8 years old, you had a father, well vested in the right kind of teacher and leader for you. But in high school, what age would you say you kind of it clicked? And what was it, freshman year or sophomore year? What was the moment that it said, yeah, I'm going to do this?
Right.
You quit football as a junior?
Yeah. Okay. So my junior year. So I think as a kid, oftentimes you don't really, there's a lot that you're unaware of, right? Like there's a lot of things happening and you're kind of just being a kid, right? So for me, I always spent way more time on wrestling and way more time studying film and way more time competing than anything else. Really, I don't think there's anyone in the entire world that at 27 years of age has watched more wrestling than me. Like there's no chance. I don't believe that. And so that's something I've been committed to since a young kid. I remember being like 7 or 8, going to wrestling tournaments, and my parents, we had like this van with like a TV in it, right? And my sisters would want to watch, Lion King or some Disney movie, and I would make them. We had this DVD set of the best Olympic trials matches for wrestling, and I'd be like, no, that's what we're putting in.
At 8 years old, you're watching film.
Yes, like watching film, studying it, like this type of thing, and so I was always I hadn't made a conscious decision that I'm not going to do these other things. I'm just going to focus on wrestling, but it was building to that point.
Sure.
And then when I got to be older and kind of understand what needed to happen in order to achieve what I wanted to achieve, then I had to make decisions that reflected that. And so quitting football and sacrificing even more than, because I already trained, 3 times a day, and I was grinding like kids and giving up a lot that most kids weren't even considering at that time. But then it was like, hey man, if I really want to do this, like I got to double down and dedicate myself even more. And so I would say like the first truly conscious decision that it didn't have to do with my dad, it didn't have to do with anybody else, was choosing to not play football anymore and just pursue wrestling, because nobody told me I had to do that. My dad wasn't like, hey, you need to do this. He actually was like a little sad because he played college football. He was like, oh, you're not going to like play through high school? I was like, Dad, I'm called like this wrestling. This is what I'm going to do.
You were a wrestling prodigy, right?
Yeah.
You just knew that. I mean, one of the stories that's out there in high school, and just stop me if I have it wrong, you were 190 pounds and you dropped 2 weight classes to chase after a 3-time state champion.
Mm-hmm. So this was in college?
No, in high school. Now listen.
You're going to tell him?
So you're in high school.
Yeah.
And you're dropping 2 weight classes to 168. And you and your buddy go to the football field because you know the guy's there.
Yeah.
And he's training, and you walk in.
Oh, yeah.
Now listen, just tell him, just stay with me.
I'm
just
with you.
tell me.
I'm with you.
Just
I'm with
tell
It took
me
a little bit too.
No, I know.
And so you and your buddy walk in,
Mm-hmm.
and you see, as you're walking in, your buddy says, I don't think this is a good idea. Am I right? So
100%.
far?
100%.
And you look down, and there he is, coming up from the bottom of the stands towards where you guys are standing up top.
Yep.
You yell, hey. He doesn't answer. And you go, hey. And he, as he's coming up 2 steps at a time with a telephone pole on his shoulders, he stops. He gives you a stare, angry, sweaty guy, and he says, I know you. And you say, Bo Nickal, Allen High.
So he's referring to...
And the first thing this madman wrestler says back is, you going to make weight? To which you reply, I don't know. Hope so. What'd he say back?
I'm trying to remember. I hope so, right? Yeah.
Hope so too.
Hope so too.
And that
That's
became
what it
your
is.
Vision Quest.
Boom.
He's
There it
referring
is.
to a movie. It's called Vision Quest, guys.
One of the best movies of all
What
time.
movie are you talking about?
That's the movie they're going to make of my life in like 10 years.
Oh, there'll be a movie for Bo Nickal for sure. Well, let's bring it back to, did you feel in high school or college, was there somebody that you wanted to go after that like was a rival of any sort?
You know, I feel like I always was focused on what I was going to do, not really so much other people. I would say more so like in youth wrestling, there were certain kids like, you know, a kid beat me here and there. I wrestled a lot, man, like all over the place. Oklahoma, California, Ohio, Illinois, Iowa, like name a state, I've been there wrestled pretty much. And so there were kids that like when I was in middle school, I remember specifically like, you know, 11, 12 years old, I would do a practice, like the high school practice that my dad would coach. I would do the youth practice. And then after me and my dad would stay and do more. And in that time I would be doing, you know, one of the big things was like they'd put a band around me and I'd do squat jumps and shots across the mat, push-ups, pull-ups, that type of thing. And like I would be thinking about these kids like, like, oh, I'm taking you out, bro. And but once I got a little older, there wasn't ever like you know, I wasn't the number one guy. Like I lost quite a few times. Like I lost I think 7 or 8 times in high school. And so I wasn't ever like, I was the number one guy in the country for the first time, I think my junior year, senior year. But I also wasn't thinking about beating this guy. I was thinking about like being number one, like myself. Like I just want to be the best. Mm-hmm. When I got to college, there was one instance where I was like, this guy, I'm coming for him.
Who was it?
It was Gabe Dean. So my freshman year, I wrestled 74. That next, I took second in the nationals. That summer, I was like, I'm going up to 184. I'm taking out Gabe Dean, who at the time was 2-time national champ, defending 70-match win streak, like number one guy, pound for pound. And I was like, that's the dude I'm coming for. But that was the only time I think there was a specific dude on my mind for like an extended period of time.
That's your vision quest.
Why, yeah. Because he beat you freshman year?
No, he didn't beat me. He was a weight above me. But I wanted to bump up just because I felt like I'm not a big weight cutting guy. Like that's not my style. And I just want to challenge myself as much as I possibly can. So, you know, my goal coming into college was to be a 4-time undefeated national champion. I was like, this is the pinnacle of the sport. This is, you know, the highest thing I could try to do. And losing my freshman year in the finals was like very devastating for me. I was like it brought me to a place, like a dark place, like for a few months, very, you know, depressed and just kind of felt like a waste of time almost, like, and just thinking very negatively towards myself. And I got to a point where I was a little sick of doing that, of being a baby and, you know, being sad. And I was like, just talking to myself, I'm like, dude, are you going to be a sad little baby for the rest of your life? You got 3 more years of school. Like, what are you going to, like, you can cry about it or you can get back on the horse. And so then I'm thinking to myself, all right, I'm not going to be a baby about it. So what's like the biggest challenge I can give myself? And immediately my head goes, up a weight, beat this guy. And I'm like, let's freaking do it. So then I just reset my goals, and that was the new goal. So that was what I was focused on.
That's very important and very interesting for especially anyone who's listening closely. You know, here you are, we talked about this whole infrastructure you had around you, how really good and to great you were. And you set a goal, you didn't reach the goal, so immediately it vaporized. And now you become somebody that you're not even sure who that person is.
Right.
Alone, maybe depressed, as you said, and probably were depressed, second guessing things.
Yep.
And so what pulled you out of it was then your own reassessment, I guess. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you needed to put another purpose in front of you.
For sure.
So that is key to the everyday person that may not have to take as long as it did for you to get to that spot.
Right.
But you reset it back, as I say reset back to zero. Every day is a chance to reset to zero.
100%.
You did something great yesterday, fantastic. Wasn't so great, it's behind me. And so clean slate, you start over. So it's great to hear that.
I love hearing that from you as well, because, you know, when I would say when I look back on the lessons that I've learned and everything, the story really goes further than, you know, being at the bottom of the barrel and then, you know, kind of resetting my goal, because the way that it actually played out and kind of what I learned about myself and about life through this whole process was that, you know, I failed. I didn't reach my goal, and I was able to kind of climb back out of that, reassess, have a new goal. And I came all the way to the position that I thought I was going to be in with that new goal, wrestling Gabe Dean in the national finals the next year. And I win, right? And I achieved it. And I felt the other side of that. And immediately I was so grateful, so happy, and just feeling very, like almost fulfilled in a way. And guess what? That feeling went away, right? You know, the next day I still felt pretty good. A few days later, I still felt pretty good. By the time a week had gone by, I'm like, that doesn't really mean that much to me. So the loss stayed with me a lot longer, but it faded just as the win faded. And I realized, you know, winning and losing in this setting, they're really not that different. And at that moment, that's when I was no longer afraid to lose. Because up until that point, I truly believe like I still had some fear in me, some fear of failure, fear of losing. And I think that drove me to a certain point where I was able to be a high achiever and perform at a high level. But it also was what held me back from even shooting further and becoming more than what I had even anticipated. It was bringing myself to a certain point, but also capping me out there. And so I think I'm a stubborn person. So I had to feel that like intense trauma of getting beat in sold out Madison Square Garden in front of 20,000 people and feel that like ultimate kind of like failure. And then on the other end, the flip side, feel that like huge goal and making it happen and coming out victorious, to kind of compare those and realize, hey man, these feelings fade either way. You don't need to be afraid of what's the outcome is of the result. Just do your best. And that's really what's valuable at the end of the day, is the process and what you learn.
And take it on and challenge it. And, you know, with that being said, that's a fantastic sentiment and feel I get from you, and probably a good time for us to take a little bit of a break. So we're going to do that and we'll be back.
A few moments later.
And we're back. Thanks for
Can I finish my...
I hope.
got some coconut
No, actually,
as
no,
well.
you're good. No, stay just like that. Actually, I think you need more coconut in your. I think you need more coconut in your beard, because there's not enough right now.
It got on your jacket too.
No, you're super clean.
Hold on. I like the coconut.
Jacket, and then right here.
Where?
Yeah, there you guys go. Now it's on your.
I don't know if it's your gray. I don't know if it's your gray beard or the coconut.
No, it's coconut.
It's old man.
I love the coconut. Put the lime in the coconut and mix it all
Old
up.
man.
There
All
you
right.
go.
So I wanted to ask one more thing about college wrestling, then I want to transition into where you're at now.
Yeah.
Is there because what you just said was so impactful and, you know, inspiring, because a lot of people go through that in smaller doses, right? Not everybody is going to be
Right.
a national champion. Not everyone's going to feel the feeling of losing a national championship. But there are things in life that you fear, and then you feel it and you realize it wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But then the reverse is true too. You set a goal for yourself and you tell yourself you're going to feel this way when it happens. And then it happens and you say, why don't I feel like I thought it was going to? But I think there's beauty in both of those, because it really is about the journey. And the next time you do it, I think you then embrace the journey a little bit more. So embracing the journey, was there ever a time in wrestling, like, do you have a moment that you can reflect on that was the hardest moment of your life? Like, I'm going to die if I cut any more weight, or I can't sweat out anything else. Anything come to mind?
You know, really, there's two. I think of my freshman year of high school, of making the state finals, having same goal that I had in college, to be a 4-time state champion, and losing. And those for me were always the hardest things. I never had a hard time pushing through workouts. I never had a hard time sacrificing to cut weight. That was all my choice. It was what I wanted to do. But I felt like when I would lose, especially a big match like that, like state finals, national finals, those were like, they hit me hard. Like, kind of just felt very broken, very alone, I felt that I gave so much of me to this craft, and I felt almost, because of that, entitled to win, and very much my identity wrapped up in that success, that when it wouldn't work out the way I wanted to, it was really hard to handle. And that was the same way that I felt losing the nationals as a freshman in college. And I just felt like so entrenched in that I didn't think anybody could relate to me. And I didn't think anybody, like, it was like, oh, like, world's smallest violin, you're the saddest man on the planet, type of thing.
Yeah.
And like, that's just how I'm so committed to my goals and so all in with these things. When it wouldn't work out, it was like, just crushed me.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because you, again, reference back to your dad, and I'm a dad, and these are things as you become that other person for your children, right? Your dad has pain, your family has pain like you have pain.
Right.
Is there anything that they would have said or could have said that would have helped you through it? Or were there things that they said that it kind of like, yeah, they're right. What might some of that be?
Yeah. So, I think that my dad, he did such a good job of just being there for me and loving me in those times, right? Like he was just as torn up as I was, being his son, maybe more even, because he wanted it so bad for me.
It was more.
And I'm sure. And so I would say as a kid, even through those experiences, he was always there for me and always the first one to tell me that he loved me and that he was proud of me. He would just say, like, I love you, I'm proud of you. And he would just hug me. Like, when I was little, like, there would be times where I would take second in a tournament or whatever, and I would walk off. I would always do this thing where I would just try to walk off to, like, the most isolated place in wherever we were competing, whether it was a high school or a big arena or whatever, and just be by myself. And he would always be there, and he would pick me up and hug me, tell me he loved me and that he's proud of me. And that always meant a lot to me. I'd be crying and this and that. And
Sure.
I almost want to cry now thinking about it. But
Give us a hug. You want to give Johnny a hug?
Appreciate you. Yeah, but he was the first one to always do that, and it meant a lot to me. And then when I'll never forget this moment, but when I was in college and I lost Madison Square Garden, right? Big arena, just got embarrassed in front of a lot of people, and I walked back, same thing I always do, to try to get to the most isolated place in the back of the arena where nobody's at. And I'm sitting there and I'm just crying, and I'm still in my singlet and just on the concrete. It's like cold, and I'm just devastated. And the first person that came to me was Cody Sanderson, who's assistant coach at Penn State. He's Coach Kale's brother. So Coach Kale, 4-time undefeated national champion, Olympic gold medalist. He did the thing like that I wanted to do. He did it. So he never experienced that in college, right? Like he's lost before, so I'm sure he's felt that. But while in college, he can't really relate. Cody, national finalist 2 times, came up short 2 times, and he came up to me. I just remember I'm crying, and he just kind of squats down and puts his hand on my back, and he just said, "I know," and that brought me a lot of comfort because, like I was saying, in those times, often I feel like I'm the only one. It's not true, right? Other people have felt it, but for some reason, I would just feel like I'm different, and I gave more, and I don't have this view anymore. But in those moments when success and winning really was my identity, that's how I felt. And him to say that, it didn't make me feel better, but it made me feel understood.
He acknowledged
it. Just was
He
comforting.
it. Yeah.
It wasn't like, okay, now I'm better, but it was the fact that he was like, I know. And immediately when he said, I know, I was like, he does know. Right. He knows. Like, and I still have 3 more years. He's done. He can't go back and do that. So that did bring me comfort. And when you have that mutual understanding with the person, it just feels good. It felt better to not just be alone.
It's interesting too because, like you said, the world's smallest violin. Though poor Bo, he lost 1 match, and he's still who he is. But that's the life you chose. You chose to be the best, and when you put yourself out there, because you earned everything you had. It wasn't like you showed up one day and said, "I want to be a national champion."
Right.
People don't acknowledge that enough, I think, and a small, and I think it goes both ways. A small victory could feel as good as it does for you to win a national champion, but everybody's on their own path in life, and you got to appreciate what you have and then respect when it's not going as well.
Without a doubt. And I think for most people, this lifestyle is hard to relate to. It's just very different from the typical experience of most people. Like, they're not putting themselves in situations like this. Maybe there's other situations, but it's very public, very like, and especially with a sport like wrestling or sport like fighting, it's like you versus him. Like, you lose, it's you. It's not like, football, all right, the kicker missed the field goal, but I'm the lineman, and, we lost as a team and it hurts. But it's different, man. Like, I played team sports growing up, and the losses in those hurt, but it's very different losing in this scenario. And yeah, I think that makes it a little hard to relate to, but there's also that other end of the coin where, you know, you do it and it's like you freaking did it.
You're a warrior. You know, you're a warrior. I've said to John, well, watching him wrestle and evolve very late, because he didn't wrestle at 8 years old. He wrestled as a freshman. He started.
Yeah.
And it was painful for him and hard for a father to see it's one-on-one. You're out there. You're naked. Yeah. Everyone's looking at you. It's exposed. You're exposed. But I pulled from that so much from watching him and others strength. Because I said, if you guys can do that, if you can go on a mat, win or lose, you can go on a mat, you got courage.
For sure.
You have strength. You have so many other things on the upside that life is going to throw at you that you're ready for.
Yep.
If there's a boss that's a jerk, that's nothing, because you went on a mat one-on-one with somebody. And so that's what wrestling, unlike any other sport, teaches. You're right. It's the one-on-one.
Yeah.
But it challenges that instinct of the days when, to truly prove yourself, whether it was in the Western times or the Roman ages of warriors and gladiators, it's one-on-one.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, and I think everybody should experience that to an extent. Not everybody has to do it their whole life, but I feel like getting a little bit of that, even if you just go to a practice one time, like you need to feel it a little bit.
You do. And that, I say everybody should be doing something as far as like fitness related, but I think anybody that puts on a little bit of muscle and feels good about themselves should be on a jiu-jitsu mat at least one time.
Just
feel the sensation of, they call it like drowning out of water, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't even know what to do. You can't move your body because somebody's smothering you. That feeling of being so humbled by another human being, you'll walk out of that gym. It's almost refreshing. I remember I was in a practice. I was getting my ass kicked by somebody, but I was loving it. I was like, this is the best because it doesn't get worse than this. Like if it was a real life scenario, I'd be dead right now. You'd be choking me out. I'd be dead on the floor. So the one-on-one thing is one thing, but you're not playing chess against somebody. You're doing something that will literally be a life or death situation. Right. And that pushing of boundaries, I think, is something, like you said, everyone should have to experience.
I remember when we were in the living room and you put me in some jiu-jitsu thing and I was just laying there and you're like, okay, now try to get out. I'm like, come on, John, really? Try to get out. I'm going to kick your ass.
Yeah.
And I'm like this. I'm like, I said, you know what? I want to go. Let's do this another time.
Right.
So
let me get warmed up first.
He's an older guy.
Yeah, my back hurts a little bit. Maybe not a good time. Right. But it's so true because the body weight of someone else and the positioning and the mechanics of what the sport is today and how it's evolved is incredible. So when I grew up in an age and there were altercations and guys wanted to flex their muscles, and it was, well, you fought with your fists and that was it. No one wrestled.
No.
And if you wrestled, no one respected the wrestlers.
Yeah.
Now there's a spider monkey who's 130 pounds and he's going to take down a gorilla that's 6'4". Right. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah, you
got to be really careful.
For sure.
But that's even too, and I want to talk about the transition from one of probably the hardest sport in the world to now fighting. And there's a ton of differences, and you've probably seen it too, where wrestlers can't make that transition. They don't have the hands for it.
Yeah.
What was it like for you? Because you didn't start training MMA until what?
A year and a half ago, basically.
It's insane how fast you can, and that's where like God-given talents are one thing, but you got to give it credit to you for your mindset and your training. Like that doesn't come overnight. And do you feel like, walk me through again, like first month, like how did it feel to get punched in the face for the first time?
Yeah. So, for me, I feel like fighting was always very natural to me, like growing up. So when I was 5th, 6th, 7th grade, I lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and very like fight oriented culture, right? A lot of like John Jones from there, at that time, there was tons of UFC champions training out of Jackson's gym in Albuquerque, big gym, still a big gym today. And so that was a very common thing. So I would wrestle at a tournament and wrestle my match. Let's say we're at like a high school or something. And then, I would go back into a hallway where none of the parents were with 20, 30 kids, and we would fight. Like, so you'd wrestle your match, you'd go back, you'd fight. You'd wrestle your match, you'd go back, you'd fight. And it would just be like a ring of kids no adults, and they would just be like, you and you, go.
What?
Yeah, dude.
Who's orchestrating that?
The kids.
What are you
like,
talking
kids.
about?
It was like Fight Club, like no joke. Like we would just fight each other. Like that was normal for us. So like I loved it. I don't know why, but that's
Because
where I
you're good.
was.
But did it
was
turn
fun.
it?
I
But
just-
it was a fight. But did it started as stand up and it always ended up on the ground?
No, it was
Oh,
like
you
it
could-
was just like stand up, like fight each other, like no takedowns. Usually, if they took it was like a normal fight. Like if you take them down, you come back up because we were already wrestling, right?
Yeah,
Like we don't need to wrestle anymore. So you'd wrestle and then you'd fight, and that was like a normal thing. And then me and my friends would be in the living room. We'd literally fight each other like for fun. And sometimes we'd be pissed and crying and mad at each other. You'd usually make up or whatever, but like that was fun for us. And so I always gravitated towards fighting. I always watched the UFC and loved it. And so, you know, it was always in the back of my head, like, this could be something I do. When I was in college, then I was like, I'm doing this, like, 1,000,000%.
Did that mindset, do you think, was it almost like, you know, U.S. trials or Olympic wrestling or UFC, or like, is that where you split, or?
No, it was much before then. It was probably like between my sophomore and junior year. So what actually happened, I remember the actual instance. So I was doing a camp in Missouri, and I'd finished the camp, and then this guy that was, I think he had a kid I was teaching, was like, hey, we're doing jiu-jitsu over here if you want to come and roll and stuff. And I was like, I guess, like, I don't know. And so I had 10, so it was kind of funny. It started off, they brought me in with like a white belt, and I like
Oh, that poor guy.
messed him up. And I mean, I watched MMA and
Can you
watched
imagine being the
jiu-jitsu,
white
so-
belt that's like, oh, I got to go against
Yeah, so, like-
this guy with funny ears. And then
Like,
just
yeah. So I know how to like I know how to do like a rear naked choke. I know how to do like a guillotine. Like I know like these basic submissions just from watching MMA. And so like I submit him, and then they're like, okay, blue belt. And like same thing, like kind of tune him up, smoke him. And then they're like, all right, purple belt. And then it's like kind of competitive, but like I'm still like getting the better of them.
This is your first day?
I've never done. They're not teaching me anything. I'm just literally like, these guys are rotating. Everyone's watching.
How
on the
old are we?
edges.
I'm
This is
sorry.
like my sophomore year, junior year of college. So 23, maybe 22.
Okay.
Yeah. But I've never trained, and they're not like, hey, this is what you need to do. They're just like, go. And I'm like, okay.
How are you beating these? But what are you doing?
Just like
Choking
take them
them?
down, hold them down, like take their back. Like, you know how to do this. I know how to like do this. I've watched like a lot of MMA, right? So like I've seen people do certain things. And then in wrestling, just from wrestling, you also know like when you're putting pressure on somebody, you know, like, all right, like I could probably like, I've choked guys out in wrestling matches, like out cold before, just from having them in tight like moves that are legal in wrestling, but you know, they're just like fighting, they're trying to fight off their back, and I have their neck or whatever, and like they'll go out. Like that happened quite a few times for me. But
So now you're on the purple belt. Go back to
yeah,
that.
so like
White
so
belt,
I'm
purple.
onto the purple belt, you know, kind of like hold him down, tune him up a little bit. He gets tired, right? And this has like been 20, 30 minutes at this point. Then they're
You're
like,
playing bull in the ring right here.
yeah, seriously, exactly. So then they bring in this dude. He's like brown belt. He's like way bigger than me, like probably 6'4", like 240. And I'm like, all right, bro, whatever. Like I'm gonna wear this dude down. Like I gotta get him tired. And so I just start pulling on his head. And at first he's like cocky, so he's trying to like stand with me, like wrestle me. And I'm like, nah, dude, that ain't working out. So I'm pulling on his head, messing him up. And then like I get him so tired that he starts pulling guard, but he like can't do anything. He's like gassed out. I'm passing his guard, and I didn't submit him, but like I'm working him and stuff like that. And so at this point, I've been going 45 minutes. These guys just rotating on me. The instructor, black belt, probably 50-year-old dude, only guy. He's in a gi, right? So everybody else was no gi, like shorts, t-shirt stuff. This guy's in a gi. He's like not that big. He's maybe like 5'10", 5'11", but he's like thick, like he had to have been 240-ish. And I'm like,
But
all
you've
right.
already wrestled these other
I've already
3 guys
I've already gone. And
for
this
45 minutes.
so
4
these guys were all 45 minutes. These guys were all fairly young, like anywhere from my age to like 30.
Mm-hmm.
And the instructor was like 50 to 60 probably. And he's like, me and you now. I'm like, okay, whatever. He
Bad
pulls guard
move.
immediately. He like locks me down half guard, and he's got a gi on. I'm in like shorts and t-shirt, so I'm like stuck. And so I'm like, all right, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm gonna try to get my leg out. Like can't get my leg out. He like tries to wrist lock me a couple of times, and I like freak out. I'm like getting out, and like I don't tap. And then I just kind of grab his head in his arm, and I'm just like squeezing him, holding him there. And we'd gone for probably like 10 minutes, 12 minutes, and I hadn't really like moved anywhere. He hadn't moved anywhere. We're just like locked down in this position. Like he wasn't going to let me pass his guard. I didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't do anything. And then everybody kind of was like, all right, that's good. Stops it. Because he was getting a little tired. He's old, right? Like,
Sure.
And of course. And so they stop it. And then everybody just starts clapping. They're like, that was amazing. And I was like, thank you. And the guy takes his gi off, has a shirt underneath. It's like his gym. I don't remember what the gym was, but he like takes his shirt off, gives it to me. He's like, good job and stuff. And I was like, all right, like that was weird.
Cool. That's cool.
It was a nice gesture.
That's nice.
It was a nice gesture.
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
felt
yeah.
like after that, I mean, I wasn't going there. I was just going there to mess around. But then I was like, I like this.
So
is
you
fun.
went there uninvited or just
No, so the first guy that brought me there was like
okay.
at the gym, and his son was a wrestler. So he was like, would you want to come with us? And I was like, and do what? He was like, and train. We're doing a practice. And I was like, okay. And so I think basically what happened is at the beginning, everybody was kind of rolling, like doing their thing. And they saw me and I was going with this guy. Then everybody stopped and they all watched. And like, it was kind of like, all right, one group kind of stopped and like the first minute. And then like the next minute, like another group kind of stopped. And the first guy I like worked him. I subbed him probably like 4 or 5 times. And then all of a sudden, like after that, it was just like the class stopped and they were just watching me and rotating on me.
That sounds like great entertainment. Tell me about the time when Johnny brought you to.
Beat his ass.
Yeah.
Well, you guys rolled.
Yeah,
These two
yeah.
rolled. I mean, there's film,
We did. It
there's
was
footage.
fun.
It's,
Sure did. We had a
No,
great
there's
time.
some legit dudes at that gym. Like that was a great.
Yeah, what
time for
happened?
It was
Tell me
fun.
about it. I know a little bit. I saw
I
some of the
almost got
video.
choked out by a girl.
Yeah,
You did?
Yeah, so we went back to Up Top.
nice.
I got to shout out Up Top Martial Arts in Wayne, New Jersey. If you guys are
Yeah.
in the North Jersey area,
Yanni.
check him out. Shout out Yanni. So we did this little prank where we brought in Bo. We called him Joe. We put a little fake mustache on him, and we told everybody he doesn't know what he's doing. It's a first day guy. Like, take it easy on him. He has like socks on and stuff. It's pretty hilarious. And we're training, and people are kind of teaching him moves or thinking they're teaching him moves. And then we go live. He lets like the first guy beat him up a little bit or something. Like
Yeah.
he starts tapping out. And then I'm like, all right, let's turn it up a little bit. And I'm, of course, the first victim of this situation. And I have to go against them first. And I was like, I'm going to try to take this fucker down. And so, there's a video online. I'll clip it here. And I go to take him down. And it didn't work out well. He tossed me to my back. And that's when everyone's like, all right, this is not just some regular guy. And then same thing where he went through the gauntlet of people just went with him, and the video is pretty hilarious. He's just working these guys like they're children, but like you said, there's a lot of guys there that actually are legit
For
artists,
sure,
yeah.
for sure.
We had fun, though.
That speaks to so many things. I mean, not only that's a fun thing, but you are a good sport.
Definitely.
For you, you're competitive as all hell, but you're a good guy and you have a good sense of humor, and all that's coming through the more I'm listening to you talk and getting to know you. And so that's kind of cool. I want to just, I'm sorry if I'm going off of, any sort of outline here, but there's the first time I want you to share the story, the first time you met John or us, because that's for me. You just start the whole thing. Tell us the backdrop and just that whole encounter.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember like how we got to that point, like how we started.
Well,
like,
you
connected.
this was at the time you were, like you said, you were training Masvidal. You were his wrestling coach. That was the first time we got connected with the UFC.
At the
weigh-ins.
the weigh-ins. Yeah, the weigh-ins.
Yeah.
And we were just kind of sitting in like the little special area.
Yeah.
That's right.
I looked at my dad. I was like, oh my God, that's Bo Nickal. He's like, who's Bo Nickal? And I was like, oh, Dad. So I went up to him. I was like, hey, at this point, I never like really went up to people at all.
Right.
But I saw him. I was like, I want to say hello. And I was like, hey, Bo, big fan. Nice to meet you. And he looks at me. He's like, Johnny drinks.
I was like, Johnny drinks?
And I was like, I literally looked at him. I was like, are you fucking with me? Because I had like a Johnny Drink shirt on, so I thought he was like making fun.
No.
And he was like, dude, no, that's awesome. And then I was like, oh my God, we got to take a picture. Took a picture. We got connected. We did the whole thing with the up top stuff. And ever since then.
Yeah, I just remember like, so at that point, I didn't know you knew like wrestling.
Yeah.
So when you came up to me, I was like, oh my gosh, like Johnny Drinks, like this is crazy, bro. And then you were like, no, I know you. I'm like, you know me?
That's
Like, what?
That's all I felt. I was like,
Yeah, I was like, no way, that's crazy. Yeah, then I'm not that far from you guys, so 2 hours, and I'm in Jersey a decent amount.
well, I gotta ask that now that I'm thinking about it. You don't drink. Like, what made you follow it? Like, what was like the
just entertaining, man. Like so as the drinking thing for me is I don't drink because I feel like it's not that I don't enjoy that.
Sure.
It's a sacrifice, right? Like when I'm done competing, I'm gonna enjoy myself and have a drink and stuff. Basically, for me, when I was 18, senior in high school, going into college, I had these goals, 4-time undefeated national champion. I just, for whatever reason, told myself, I'm like, sometimes I just tell myself like, all right, I'm just going to sacrifice this. I just want to. So I told myself, I'm not drinking one time throughout college. I'm not going to do it. And so 5 years, didn't have a drink.
Wow.
Finished my college career. And then there was maybe like a 1 year period where, I'd drink a glass of wine with dinner, have a drink casually at a wedding. I'm going to drink, stuff like that. And, just had more fun and loosened up a bit. And I don't feel like there's anything wrong with drinking and competing. I think some people, but for me, I'm just not going to do it. And so now I had that year-long period or so where I was, and now I'm like, okay, I set these new goals for myself. UFC champion, pound for pound, #1 fighter in the world. It's back to the same thing. So I'm going to take these next however long it takes, let's say 5 years, and do the same thing. I'm fully committed to my goals. When I get the belt, when I'm the pound for pound #1 guy, then we'll pop some bottles. But until then,
and we'll be there.
yeah,
You're popping your first bottle for sure.
1,000,000%.
And then when you're ready to do a brand deal, you do it with us.
Yes.
To figure out
100%,
some sort of
yeah.
whiskey or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And now you have a nickel smoothie we
Yes.
just created today.
Yeah.
You can
Beautiful.
make a market
And
that
actually,
if you like.
turns out we're going to be airing this on the 28th. I am going sober for the month of April, and I'm saying this on the camera because I have my camera crew fucking I'm
Watch your mouth,
serious.
watch your
about it.
language,
I'm
watch your
serious about this month.
Yeah,
I'm
watch your
going,
mouth.
Sorry.
No, I'm
Sorry,
playing.
I'm going 30 days, no drinking, and honestly, it's less about the health. It's going to be a health benefit, more about discipline. Like I
Yeah.
want to tell myself I'm going to do something,
Yeah.
and then not a weekend be like, oh, well, one drink can't hurt.
Yeah, I feel like it just gives me a little edge. Like
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm willing to, obviously not drinking. Maybe for some people it might be a huge sacrifice. For some people it's maybe not. But for me, I'm like, I just want that edge. I want whatever mental edge I can get possible.
Right.
And of course I do a lot of other things, but that's just one thing where I'm like ahead of my competition in a way.
And I was going to say, it puts you mentally ahead of them. You
Yeah.
see them drinking, you're like, I sacrificed this.
Yeah.
Now I'm automatically, in my mind, better than you.
And that energy, you can feel that in the cage. Like when somebody, in the mat too, when somebody's like all in on something and they're confident, you can sense it. And I know that my opponents sense that from me. I'm excited to compete against another person that has that same mentality because I want to beat the best guys. I don't want to just take the easiest path. I want to do the hardest things. And so, I haven't really felt that yet, but there was times in college where I'm like, this dude's ready to go. Like, let's get it. I'm here for it. So, I'm sure that will happen in fighting as well.
Right. So where are you training now, by the way?
So I bounce back and forth between State College. I started a gym August of 2021 out there.
You started a gym?
Yep.
Oh, awesome.
American Top Team. So I partnered with
Sick.
American Top Team. We have a franchise out there with, we do classes for the public, Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and then pro practices. And then I'm down in Fort Lauderdale at the ATT headquarters as well, a good amount for training camps and stuff. So
But right now you're in State College.
yeah, in State College. That's where I live. That's like home for me.
Okay.
So yeah.
Where do you have a specific like striking coach?
So I have a couple. For when I'm down in Florida, I work with Mike Brown. I work with Thiago Alves. So both those guys, tons of MMA experience, wealth of knowledge. And then when I'm up in State College, I had a Muay Thai coach, the Brazilian guy I was telling you about earlier with all the fights with the shaved face.
Yeah.
But so he was there for like the first year, but he had visa issues, had to go back to Brazil. So working on getting him back. And then I have a good boxing coach. His name's Moose. I don't know. You maybe seen him on my social media before, but
Sure, yeah.
he's a young guy like our age. Grew up in Philly, had maybe 50, 60 amateur boxing fights. And so he teaches me boxing. I teach him wrestling and stuff.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, then I've worked with a couple other guys too. I've worked with this guy, Barry Robinson, who he's American, but he lives in Thailand now. And he's like insane, awesome striking coach. So I just try to basically like, Moose is probably the guy that I work with the most striking wise because he's in State College. He's local. I see him every day. But I just try to see guys that I like their thought process. I like how they coach and I relate to it. It's more similar to what I'm used to at Penn State. Like they have that kind of mentality and that's what I seek out. Got
it. So you've been striking and doing jiu-jitsu for about a year and a half, you said?
Yeah. So like I told you, like in college, I don't really count that because it wasn't like I wasn't learning anything. But yeah, I maybe dabbled like here and there. It was pretty much all my jiu-jitsu experience was 20 guys rotating in on me and just trying to freaking not get submitted and figuring it out using my wrestling. I would say I really started training a year and a half ago, where I was learning techniques and learning defense, learning position, things like that.
Do you remember a time where, like I said, like your first sparring session where somebody really got the better of you and you're like, whoa, this is different?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Honestly, like going down to Coconut Creek, going down to ATT, the headquarters down there, there's so many freaking tough guys, man. They do a good job too of like they're not going to put me in, like at that point, they weren't like throwing me in there with guys where I was like, didn't know what I was doing and they're going to try to knock me out, So they're like guys that are moving me along and helping me more so like than trying to hurt me, And I think that's the culture of MMA is headed more in that direction of helping each other and just a healthy kind of training mindset versus, all right, we're sparring, I'm gonna knock this dude out. Like that's not really so much a thing anymore, especially for me being a big prospect. They want to make sure they're helping me and protecting me and stuff from that. So, there was times I'm getting beat up for sure. Like dudes are beating me. I'm not able to do what I want to do, and I'm pissed after practice. I'm like, I gotta freaking get better. But I think there's a appropriate ratio of that.
Good. What about jiu-jitsu? Any like dudes that are just?
I mean, I had a match with Gordon. We were watching that, so I'm getting tapped out and subbed once in a while here and there. But my jiu-jitsu is getting pretty good, man. Like I genuinely feel like, so I got invited to ADCC this year. I wasn't able to do it because it was 2 weeks before my contenders fight. Yeah. So I was like, man, this is bad timing. But I feel very confident in my jiu-jitsu. I mean, I've rolled with pretty much, obviously, like I said, Gordon, like the best guys in the world. William Tackett's another really high-level guy that I've been able to roll with, and I feel good.
What is that? I'm sorry, what did you get invited to?
So ADCC, it's basically like the Olympics for jiu-jitsu. They do it every 2 years, and it's like the biggest event in the sport. But you can qualify, or in special occasions they do invites. And it was like a big honor for me to be invited. Unfortunately, like I said, I had to turn it down. But I feel like when I'm done fighting, I'll definitely compete in jiu-jitsu.
You will?
Yeah.
Well, that's a credit to, and I want to talk about this too, the expectations you have. You're probably one of the most hyped up, and for reason, fighters of today, right? How does that impact you? Does it drive you? Does it fear you at all? Like what's your mindset about that?
I feel like when I look at the pressure and the expectations that are on me from, outside sources, it's there's nothing that anybody could say or anybody could put on me that's bigger than what I already expect out of myself. So when I look at my intrinsic motivation and what the pressure that I feel from just myself, it's already bigger than anything else, right? And so, to say that I don't feel it from the outside wouldn't be true, because you do feel it, but it's also just like, okay, yeah, like that kind of aligns with what I'm trying to do anyways. Right. And then, of course, there's the other side of people saying, oh, like this and that, he's not going to do this, not going to do that. And I'm like, that used to, when I was younger, motivate me a little bit, and kind of like, I'm like, all right, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to shove it in your face.
Right, you're talking about the white noise.
Yeah.
People outside.
And now I feel like I'm more mature and sure of myself, that it almost is like funny. I'm like, when they say that, I'm like, you don't know me. Like, you've never even had a conversation with me. Like, that doesn't mean anything. It'd be like me going to a random person and telling them like they're a college student, like, you're never going to graduate. It's like, I don't know you.
It's irresponsible.
Yeah. And so, hopefully as I continue to build my presence in the MMA community, more people will get to know me, understand me through content like this, through content with the UFC, where they're seeing the way I train, they're seeing my dedication and how I live my life and what's going on in here, that they're going to be able to understand better. And whether they do or not, it's not really like that important to me. I would hope that they do, because I like when people root for me. Like, I don't want to be the villain. I feel like that's not really me. And so, it'll just take time though.
Sure.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that too, like the perception or persona you feel like you have to put on, because let's be real, the UFC is an entertainment business, so you do have to.
You're performing.
You got to perform, and so I've seen you. I know who you are, and then I see you have interviews, and you're very aligned with who you are, and I think that's great. But there are points where you know what you got to say, and you have to go out there and do it.
I think that I'm never going to say anything that I don't actually believe. So when I say things that like I want to be the UFC champion, I want to be the #1 pound for pound fighter in the world. At the same time, I'm not going to say that I am the best guy in the world right now. I think there's a lot of work to be done to get to that point. And so I feel like it might seem unrealistic to me to say I want to do this, but to me it's not. And at the same time, I also want to acknowledge that I'm not there yet. There's a lot of work to be done to get to that point. I feel very fortunate that my personality and with wrestling, the platform that I've been able to build, people have always wanted to watch me compete. They've always been interested in what I'm doing. You know, when I was a young kid, 7, 8, there would be 50 people crowd around my mat to watch me wrestle at a tournament. You know, that was like a normal thing for me. And then in high school, you know, it was a little bigger. And then in college, it was like, you know, I was pretty much the guy. And, you know, now moving into MMA, like I'm the number one prospect in recent memory, you know, in my mind. And a lot of people want to see me compete. And so I don't feel like I've had to do anything out of character to get there. And that's just a blessing that I've been able to garner that. And it's not something that I really seek out. It's just kind of happened organically and naturally. And it's part of my job now.
Yeah. No,
So one of the things I have a question about.
One of the things I was going to say too.
My turn.
And what I was going to say. Well, what I wanted to say. No, I wanted to. And I wanted to say.
No,
before we get into this,
my question is going to be
before you ask this
so
question,
much
it's going to be
better.
a fantastic question.
It's so much better.
We're
than
going to
your
take
question.
a quick advertisement break.
But my
We'll see you guys very soon.
I love that.
A few moments later.
And we are back. Welcome.
All right. So my question, the weigh-ins.
Yeah.
That is a very tense point, and to the, you know, moment, things that you mentioned earlier about UFC's business, and it's a bit of theater, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who are you going to be? You're going to be this composed, straight, focused guy. You're going to get provoked and become someone else. I mean, you have to have gone through that, I would think, a little bit, right? So which guy, if someone's going to degrade, beat you up, insult you, talk, what's your thought on how you're going to be?
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot. You know, I think that from me, I'm not there to spit venom at people, anything like that. You know, I feel like I want to just be myself at all times and be true to me. So there's nobody that I'm looking to put down in any way. I don't want to make people feel bad about themselves or, you know, talk trash unprovoked. But at the same time, I'm not gonna, you know, not respond. I'm not gonna be somebody that just lays down. And so it's a balance, right? Of like, I'm not really willing to have people say whatever they want to me. Like, it's not like, all right, you can say whatever you want to me and then we'll just handle it on the fight. Like, I'm going to talk back and I'm going to say what I think. I'm going to bring facts, bring data with me and say it how I think it is, right? Like if I don't think that, if I think I'm fighting a guy and he wants to say this and that about me, and I don't think that it's going to be competitive, I'm going to say that. I'm going to say, I don't think you're on my level.
Okay, so who do you watch that you would say, right, I kind of want to emulate that?
Yeah.
You don't want to be Conor McGregor. That's not you.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of guys. He's one of his own. But so
honestly, out of everybody that I've seen talk on the mic, or it's going to sound weird, but like a guy like Khabib Nurmagomedov, who was very respectful. You know, he's a devout, like, religious guy who he lives his life in a very disciplined way. At the same time, you know, you get him on the mic, he calls out McGregor. He says, Irish 3 million, Russia 150 million. Like, that's what I come with. So, you know, talking
Sure.
his shit, like in a way. And so, for the most part, respectful. If you're gonna be respectful to me, for sure, like I'm gonna be respectful to you. I'm not looking to put people down. I don't want to, and I want to beat you in a fight. I'm not looking to, like, embarrass you in, like, a personal way. It is somewhat personal, but I'm not looking to be malicious in a exchange in that way. Like, I'm here to win. I'm here to do my thing. And but at the same time, like, I'm willing to talk trash. You know, if you came into the Penn State Wrestling room and watched, like, one practice, there's a decent amount of trash talk. So it's I think that's part of the game. It can be fun if it's, as long as I don't like when people go, like, low.
interesting.
Yeah, and there's no need to, like, that just speaks to your character, right? As a man, because like we said, you got to put on this show, but you're not willing to sacrifice who you are as a person just to make you, because you're degrading somebody else. And there have been things that have been said that push people to their limits that go so far beyond the fight. Talking about family and who they are. There's no need for that stuff. You're a competitor.
At the end of the day, man, like, it's a sport,
right?
You know, this is a game, and fighting, it might not seem like that, but I believe that's how I approach it. It's a game.
Good for you.
And there's a very harsh line that you can't go past, and people do it in fighting, and I'm like, man, that's just not it's not a good look. Like, let's say you make $1 million more on the pay-per-view side. It's like, that's not worth it to me, right. You know, and any amount of money wouldn't be worth it to me. But it's like, people are willing to sell their souls, and that's just kind of the world we live in, and it just has trickled into fighting, and I'm not gonna do that.
Well, I would assume it. I mean, your faith in God probably keeps you very grounded in that sense, right? So that you're very devoted and faithful, right? So that keeps you've had that with you for forever.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah, that's been ingrained in me since I was a kid, and you know, when I got to be an adult, that I made that a personal choice for myself of how I wanted to live my life. You know, everybody gets to a certain age, a certain point in their life where, hey, guess what? Like, you're not listening to your parents every single word, and you get to make your own choices now. A lot of times it's 18, 19, 20 years old. And for me, that's when I made a personal choice that what type of man I was going to be, and what I was going to have as my foundation. And, you know, I'm going to stay true to that regardless. That's a big reason that, you know, I live in central Pennsylvania. Like, I'm not interested in being in Miami or being in LA and going out to the club every night and being in the news and that type of stuff. Like, I'm going to keep it to myself. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to perfect my craft and be as good as I can at fighting, you know, and enjoy that, and get to live my life the way I want to live it. And I don't have to, I just get to be true to myself, which is,
well, you have plenty of other time in your life. When you accomplish this, then you'll do all that stuff later on.
Yeah, you know, and I think, like, more than likely after I accomplish my goals and do what I need to do, like, I'm gonna be a recluse a little bit. Like, I just want to do my thing, and what I enjoy really in life, you know, and what I'm looking forward to when I'm done, because I sacrifice a lot. I recognize the sacrifice it takes to get to where I want to be. It is a blessing, and there is so much opportunity with that. But what I like is just spending time with good people, having good conversations. Like, my favorite thing is when it's the summertime or early fall, and all my boys around, and we sit around a fire, and we're just chatting it up and, like, having a good time. Yeah. Or, you know, I get to go in and train and do jiu-jitsu or box or do whatever, and then eat like a steak, and then chill with my wife and stuff like that. Like, that's what I like doing. I'm not like the guy that's gonna go meet, you know, be out and doing all those things, and I don't need attention. Like, it's actually one of the drawbacks for me of doing what I do is the attention. You know, there's a good part of it where there's opportunity in business and things like that, but it's also a little draining to me.
Sure, we understand that.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think I put some sort of question up on my story one day, and I asked, like, what are the biggest drawbacks of being a creator? And you said it gives people a very deep inside look on your life, and you feel
that access, you know.
Yeah, that access is oftentimes scary, and it's not from like you're threatened by it, but you just don't want people always involved in knowing what you're doing.
I do feel inclined to being private as I can. I'm not able to do that to the extent that I would like to, you know, and I still have goals, and I'm willing to sacrifice that for what I want to achieve. But it's always interesting to me because when people, I'm sure it's like this for you, when people see you, it's like they know you. Even though, you know, they just see you on social media, it's a different type of feeling. And I know you're the same person, but it's also like, you don't know that person. It's just a weird kind of dynamic. It's interesting.
Very weird. It's taken both of us a lot of adjusting because it just is. And that's a very profound thing to conceptualize and think about who you really want to be. So you've got to, you know, come in here. You're going to think, all right, I know who I am. I know what I want to say. And there's certain things that you just will keep off limits because you should.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think that as far as that goes, I try to be as open and transparent and honest as possible. But at the same time, I don't want anyone and everyone, like I have a close, tight-knit group of friends and people, like, again, being in central Pennsylvania, a lot of my teammates still live there. Like, these are my boys. Like, these are my ride or die, the people that I'm with day in, day out. They know me in a much different fashion, a different light than somebody that's followed me, even if they've followed me for, let's say, 10 years, right? It's just, it's different. And I think maintaining that
it's privacy.
Discrepancy.
It is. And you should,
important.
because there are some things that people just don't need to know.
No.
And there are mistakes and things you're not proud of that you've done that are yours. And
sure.
and so there's something extremely honorable about being transparent and candid and forthright and, you know, an open book, all those things. I talk to him about this more times than probably I'd like and more times that he wants to hear. But who you are and who you exude out to the world that you want to be is very important. They don't need to hear all of the other fails and the mistakes you made. And you don't want to remind yourself of them anyway.
Right.
So let's just...
Yeah. And I'm everybody's working to be a better person and the best version of themselves. And there's a lot of stuff that's just like, it's, well, if we're just being real, like, of things that go on in your daily life that are just like not social media things. Like, pretty much my whole social is what people want to see. They want to see me train. They want to see me grilling steaks. They want to see this stuff. They don't want to see, like, when you get an argument,
you get
with
a road
friend
rage
or,
with somebody,
or
and you give them the finger.
Yeah, you're like,
yeah, oh,
like,
that's Bo Nickal. Hey, Bo.
What's up, man?
But that's
Sorry I cut you off.
On the other side, like, you got to be aware of that, like,
100%. Yeah.
because people know you, you know, and it's like, you know, so whenever I think of interactions with fans and stuff. So anytime I'm walking through campus, I always have guys. It's the first time they've ever seen me. They're so hyped. They don't realize that they're the millionth person that's done that, or that you don't know them. It's such a different thing. So, like, I always try to recognize that and see it from their position and be very kind and gracious. And at the end of the day, I appreciate that, because those are the people that are going to be supporting me, that are going to be buying merch, buying the pay-per-views. And so I want to be able to give them that when I can. But at the same time, it's like, I'm not going to do that my whole life.
No. It's a one-sided relationship. I was talking about this the other day with somebody. Think about it like the way you feel about your best friend, right? Two-sided. The way they feel about you is probably the way you feel about your best friend. And maybe you guys would form a relationship one day and you would get to know him or her. But at this point, we don't. We don't know each other. You know me way better than I know you, or you think you know me. So you got to take everything with a grain of salt. And like you said, you got to treat your fans the way they're sort of expecting you to act, because that is what it is. They've formed this relationship with you. Give them what they're looking for.
So this is one thing that I struggle with a little bit. Like, I don't look at my direct messages on social media, like the requests, very often. But once in a while, I'll look through and I'm like, okay, I have thousands and thousands of people messaging me, asking me to do something very minimal for them. Like, you know, just message them back, just like their comment, just doing this. And I'm like, I really want to, but I can't do this. I would spend every second of the day. Like, I can't do it. Right. And that's hard for me because I feel like very grateful to be in my position and I want to give back, but it's not realistic to be able to give that little bit to every person. Somebody's going to miss out. And at the end of the day, like, I'm just not able to.
No, and you have to train.
Listen, it's hard.
Your craft is very different than ours. We get the same things, a lot of DMs, and I'm flattered by people.
I got all day.
Yeah.
Sit all day. And people are, again, I have time. I will make time. I will engage. And if it stays within some rules of boundary, cool. I'll keep going. Once you go over and you start becoming silly or stupid, but then no one likes silly guys.
Don't be silly, guys.
Can't be silly.
When that happens, then you got to pull back. Cause, okay. You know, there's an old saying, and I'm not exactly sure how it goes, but it's something to the effect that don't be disappointed when you meet your hero, right? Or something that, because the perception of who that person isn't necessarily who they really are.
Right.
Especially actors.
Oh, yeah.
Actors.
They play a role. That's what you see.
And they keep changing their roles.
It's different.
And they don't even know who they are. That's why a lot of actors, I think, and actresses are confused.
It's tough, yeah.
Who are they? They played so
their whole
many
life.
different roles. So anyway, that being said, you know, it's very interesting. We've had plenty of people. I know people have met me, talked to me, engaged with them, and then after they met me, they don't interact anymore. I'm like, okay, no problem. But they got what they needed, and then now maybe they're like, oh, okay, that was fine. Now what?
Well, that's what it's like for sure. Like, so when I go teach at a club, right? Like there was a local club that I used to teach at wrestling when I was in high school, and the first day it was like, oh my gosh, the parents, the kids, like. Then the second day it was like, and then by the fourth day it's like, what's up, Bo? Like, how you doing? It's like a normal person, right? So, you know, most people you're not going to be able to get to that with them, but at the end of the day, it's like just people walking, putting your shoes on, tying them the same as anybody else, and it's that perception is definitely skewed, but the important relationships, the people that you're around day in, day out, that's like, you know, what I prioritize.
For sure. Yeah. So this podcast, I think, was a great opportunity for me and our audience to learn more about you as a person. You're genuine, you're kind-hearted, and it's so almost like opposite of what you would expect a fighter to be.
I try to be
because
opposite.
you are. Like, yeah, but that's who you are, and you're emulating that, and you're doing a really great job portraying that to everybody else. But I want to know what's next for Bo, right? You're in the middleweight, you want to be a champion one day. Who do you have a specific person you want to fight eventually? Like, what is your road to that?
Right. You know, being where I'm at and kind of being in this position much quicker than I expected to be is such an interesting predicament. You know, there's positives and negatives. I haven't had as much time to develop and gain, you know, knowledge and understanding of my sport, but I'm also, you know, kind of on this crazy trajectory of like, you know, opportunity. And so for me, it's being diligent and listening to the people around me who have been in this game for much, much longer than me and have experienced and seen pretty much anything and everything that you can. And so I'm always going to lean on those people and rely on, you know, my management team, my coaches, the guys who have years and years in MMA that, you know, they're going to be able to help put me in the best position to be successful and reach my goals. You know, eventually it's the pound for pound number one guy, UFC champion at 185. And when that happens, you know, possibly moving to 205, gaining another belt, depending on where I'm at in my career. But at this point, I would say the biggest thing on my mind is just improving, getting better every single day. If I try to, you're not going to, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. So you're not going to be able to, I'm not going to be able to achieve those things if I don't focus and make the most of every single day. And that's every aspect of my life, whether it's how I train, how I recover, how I sleep, my nutrition, my relationships, making sure everything's healthy and in order, taking care of my wife, making sure that she has every single thing she needs to be successful in all of her endeavors. And just getting better, right? So that's what I really am excited about. And, you know, it might seem monotonous, and sometimes I get caught up thinking like in the future too far, but I'm able to reel myself back in, because when I have done that in the past, that's when you get humbled really quick. That's when you experience that loss, and if you don't bring yourself back down to reality and humble yourself, it's going to happen to you in a different way, and you're not going to like it. And so I feel like those lessons that I've learned have kind of taught me, don't get too big for your britches, don't get ahead of yourself, take it one day at a time. And so whoever the UFC puts in front of me, whoever my coaches and I decide that is next, that's what I'm focused on. And, you know, it's good to plan and develop and make sure that you have an idea of where you want to go, but you got to make sure you're taking every single step to get there and paying attention to detail, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. And you hit on the humble part. I remember we were in a car one day and we were talking about like music choice, and I asked you the question, like, what kind of music you listen to? Do you listen to rap or hip hop? And you're like, yeah, no, sometimes, and it stuck with me. You're like, I don't listen to it too much because it gives me too much perceived confidence.
Yeah.
Or I need to humble myself to. And I was like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? But it was so real. If you do things and you drink the Kool-Aid, you get ahead of yourself a little bit too much. And you're doing such a great job staying the course, staying grounded, and listening to the people that are surrounding you. I'm just so curious, because we're with you now. We're in this journey together. Yeah. And you will be a champ one day. And we're going to have you back on this show. And I'm so excited to see your persona, if you know how different that's going to be, because you watch a guy like John Jones, watch him speak at 19, 20 years old when he was a new guy at UFC.
Yeah.
Watch him speak now. Or watch anybody. Watch Drake speak when he was new and watch him now. They're just different people. So I'm just so excited to get that next person out of here.
I appreciate that. I'm definitely excited too. I feel like I'm growing and learning and getting better every single day. And I have a great foundation, a great team around me, a lot of people that want to support me, and a lot of people that I look up to and that I still feel, are guys of high character. And at the end of the day, for me, man, like fighting and what I do every single day is something that I'm so enthusiastic about. I'm so excited about, and I love it. But what I look at, who I want to be and what's most important, first and foremost, is being a good husband, and when my wife and I have kids, being a good dad. Like, again, I want to be UFC champion. I want to be all these things, but there's things that come before that and that go ahead of that I'm even more focused on. And so I would hope that by the time I do reach those goals, which I'm going to reach, that people have a different perspective of what a fighter is like. And people kind of, there's this persona of like macho man, tough guy, cool guy, whatever it is. Like, I would just hope that for me, it's about, again, the relationships, being kind to people, being generous, humility. And there's a big difference between believing in yourself and arrogance. And I never want to be an arrogant person. So, I think there's times where I teeter that line a little bit because I have such strong belief. And that's kind of my internal battle a lot of times, is that pride versus humility. And so I just hope I can continue to tap into that humility side of it and be a great champion and be a role model for kids that, that MMA doesn't have. I want to change the game in a technical sense of what I'm doing. I also want to change it in the persona of who is a fighter, right? Like, you look at a lot of, let's say, like NFL quarterbacks and the way that they speak and the way that they talk. Like, there's a lot of good examples to look up to. Or, you can look at a lot of sports. There's bad examples as well, but in fighting, it just seems to me that we don't have that. And I think I have a good opportunity to be that.
Well, you certainly do, and you're doing your part, and that's all that you can do, right? Is stick to what you've outlined, for your goals to be. But I keep meaning to want to ask you this, then we'll kind of wrap it up. What's your wife's name?
Madeline.
All right.
Yeah, Madeline.
You and Madeline have been married how long?
2 years.
2 years. And you said you want to have children. Do you have an idea when you want to have children?
So my wife, she just finished grad school. She's just sat for her exam as a registered dietitian Friday. She passed her exam, which was...
Congratulations, Madeline.
Yeah.
There you go.
Super proud of her. So happy for her, yeah. And so now that she's done with that, she has, more time. And so I would think that we'll probably... in the next couple of years at the latest, but sometime very soon. So
well, Madeline, you're doing a great thing here, because behind every strong, great man is a woman that's rolling their eyes and supporting that man.
Where's
That's
mine?
true.
Where's my woman?
John doesn't have. Oh, look, we're gonna put it out to Instagram and see
This
if
is why I
anybody's
started this whole
interested.
podcast, to find a girl.
Yeah. Love it.
You had your chances. They wanted him to be on Mini Bachelor. He didn't want to do it.
No.
Really?
It was a
Dude, you
height
would be
thing. They
great
didn't
on
want to
those
do it.
shows.
Yeah, they wanted. It didn't work out. It was like
It was actually
5'7" and under. And he
I would have crushed it. It was either this or The Bachelor, so I had to pick this.
Okay, fair.
No, we wrap up every podcast again. Thank you so much for coming, but I want to ask you two questions. One is going to be, what has been your biggest achievement or accomplishment of your life, and then what has been the most humbling experience of your life? You can answer whichever one first.
I would say I don't want to be corny, but I would say like the biggest achievement in my life was honestly marrying my wife, man. Like, she is the best. I love her so much.
Madeline, she has to wait till the end of the
Yeah,
podcast.
she's
She
probably
gets-
not,
she gets
she's not
the
listening
end.
anymore.
Sorry. Yeah, you better tell her, honey. They talked about you.
Yeah.
It's somewhere in there, so she got to tune in.
No doubt.
That's
I'll let her
amazing.
know. But yeah, man, she's such an amazing person. I feel so grateful to be able to just spend time with her every single day. And she is somebody that I want to just continue to cherish and put first. And, I like I've said this a few times, but I sacrifice so much for my goals, and I always those things are running through my mind, and I'm wanting to get better at fighting and stuff. But at the end of the day, man, that stuff is fleeting, and I'm gonna achieve my goal is be UFC champion and do this. And in 10 years after that, nobody's gonna talk about me. You know, maybe once in a while. 20 years after that, it's not gonna be anything. So what's really gonna last, I think, is family relationships. She's my number one relationship, my biggest priority in that regard. And I just want to continue to honor her and make sure that I am just a good husband, man. Like that's
good boy.
that's something that's so I can't overstate the importance of that. And as far as like humbling experiences, I've had a lot. Just putting myself in positions where I've lost in front of as many people as I have. I think that when I look back on my biggest losses, the ones that hurt the most were definitely the two that I touched on, the state champion my freshman year and the national championship my freshman year in college. And so those hurt the most. But I would say as far as humbling, not making the U.S. Olympic team and not being able to win a gold medal for my country and kind of having to sacrifice that dream to pursue a different dream in MMA was very difficult and hard. And that was more of a decision, I would say. The decision of, hey, I'm not going to wrestle anymore. Like, I'm going to fight was extremely difficult. But again, I'm glad I did it, but I had to give up something that I had done for 20 years to pursue a new goal. And that really, I learned a lot about myself through that.
That's awesome, man. Anything else you want the world to know about Bo Nickal?
Love y'all.
What about we have? Hold
Love
on.
y'all. Love
Announcement. Big announcement we have as of yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Who are you fighting next? What do we got?
Yeah, I got July 8th International Fight Week. I'll be fighting Trayshawn Gore. So
Nice.
contract signed, and I'm ready to go.
Where's that fight going to be?
It'll be in Vegas.
Are we going to Vegas?
We will be in Vegas.
Let's do
This
it.
is a team now, guys.
Man, I don't
do
think
it.
I can
And
go to
the
Vegas.
camera crew's coming.
So this is the thing about Vegas. I've been to Vegas so many times to compete, all that. You gotta stay in Airbnb. Don't stay on the Strip, and just be in Vegas when you want to be, and also be able to chill when you want to chill. So, like,
All right, that's one way of doing it, Bo. I'll show everybody the other way.
Let's hear the other way.
This
Let's
big party
go.
guy over here.
Bro,
Well, that's awesome.
You got to remember, a little older, a little bit more experienced.
I got you.
You
I'm
stay at the
excited to hang.
Airbnb.
Hey, I'm all
I'll
ears.
invite you over to the suite.
There we go.
This guy tries to hang at 57 years
No,
old.
not long. No, I'm a sprinter for now. That's for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Love it.
guys, thank you so much for watching. We're going to wrap this thing up. Like, subscribe, share, all the good stuff. Cheers.
Cheers.